Alright, so the last Nintendo Direct was a little bit controversial considering the type of games that we got, like Mario vs. Donkey Kong and F-Zero 99. People have been waiting for those big games. And what happened to stuff like Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Metroid Prime 4, and what about that Fire Emblem 4 remake? Well, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what happened to the Fire Emblem 4 remake and Metroid Prime 4, or at least what I think happened to them, what's happening with Nintendo, and where we go from here. But before we get into all of this, what's good everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch and RPG videos first and the best Nintendo Switch content. Now let's go ahead and jump right into this, and we're going to start off with the Fire Emblem 4 remake. So this is something that I've talked about a number of times. So this is Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. This is a Super Famicom game that was never released in the US officially. Now there are patches to where you can play it, and there's a variety of ways, but it's something that was Japan only, and it's a very interesting game because there have been very credible rumors that Nintendo is remaking this game, dating all the way back to I think 2020 or 2021. I started covering it, and it's interesting because I've always felt that Nintendo would reveal this game, but the curveball was Fire Emblem Engage. That was a title that apparently was supposed to come out earlier than it did, but it didn't. It came out this year at the beginning of the year. So it could have gotten pushed or moved from when they originally wanted to have the game out, because it does feel, once you play and beat it, that it's more of an anniversary fan style of game that still has some incredible main series improvements, adjustments, UI, quality of life features that will probably be carried over to the other Fire Emblem games or new Fire Emblem games. But at the same time, there's still a few different things that don't quite put it in line with something like Path of Radiance or Fire Emblem 4 or the original Fire Emblem or Fire Emblem Three Houses, for example. Now, it's not Fire Emblem Warriors, but you guys know what I mean in that sense. So what happened to the Fire Emblem 4 remake? Is it still coming to the Nintendo Switch? Well, that's complicated. I do feel that there still is a Fire Emblem 4 remake sitting there, but I think at this point, if it didn't show up at this Direct, Nintendo isn't going to have another Nintendo Direct this year. We know that September is usually their final presentation in terms of what they are doing. So there's not going to be some type of surprise presentation or announcement of something later in the year. That's done. They are set for this fall and winter. They've got games for next year as well. If it was coming out early next year, they absolutely would have talked about it. Heck, I think if it was coming out first half of next year, they would have talked about it. Now, there is a slight chance that we see a Fire Emblem 4 remake announced at a early 2024 Direct, but that's going to be hard to guess, or that's going to be hard to predict, because Nintendo is absolutely moving into the phase of the Nintendo Switch 2, their next system. You can tell by the amount of ports and remasters, remakes that they're doing on the Nintendo Switch. This is the type of stuff that you do kind of towards the end of a system's life, and it's a good run for the Switch. Heck, to be honest and to be fair, this is probably the best final run up to what Nintendo's doing when it comes to rumors of their next system. This is probably the best that we've gotten it, because we're still getting a game like the Princess Peach Showtime, and then we're getting a bunch of fan requested stuff like Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door remake. People have been wanting that, have been begging for real Paper Mario RPG for a very long time. Super Mario RPG, a brand new 2D Mario game, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4. There have been a number of big major new releases and remakes slash re-releases that people have been wanting. So this is probably the best that we've gotten it from transitioning to one system to another, especially when there's so many consistent rumors that are out there. So I do feel that Nintendo probably had a select group of games that could be Switch titles. Fire Emblem 4 Remake was maybe that, but potentially they are holding that for a cross-gen type of release, or for a Switch 2 release. Now, I'm more on board of this is going to be a cross-gen type of thing because I just don't know when Nintendo would announce it. If it's not announced, not at this point and coming out early next year, then when is it going to be announced? I still feel that Nintendo probably doesn't have too many more games, and I think that based off of the current rumors that are going around with the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo could announce the system sometime in March of 2024. So could there be a Fire Emblem game announced in March of 2024 alongside with that? Or could they wait and have it at some type of presentation that's going to be later for the Nintendo Switch 2? That is very possible. It's also very possible that Nintendo does something that they normally don't do, and that is support the previous generation system once the new system comes out with titles. Nintendo is not a cross-gen type of publisher or console manufacturer. Microsoft and Sony have done that with the Xbox Series and the Xbox One and PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4. Nintendo does not really do that. They might have one big cross-gen game like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, like a Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, but they don't continuously support the system with new games or with titles after the new system is out. Now, with the popularity of the Nintendo Switch, the sales of the Nintendo Switch, and the fact that it's still doing decent when it comes to sales wise, given its age around the world, and in countries like Japan, it's still the top seller by far when it comes to system sales and software sales. Nintendo might rethink what they want to do. Fire Emblem 4 could be one of those games to bolster the first year or the first number of months of the lineup for the Nintendo Switch 2. Or they might think that, hey, we could have a little bit more impact with this game, considering the style that Fire Emblem Genealogy The Holy War, Fire Emblem 4, is. It's a dark, gritty type of game that has some shocking revelations and some really different type of themes that you don't usually see in a Nintendo game, Fire Emblem included, despite it being a Fire Emblem game. It's very unique. That's why people are excited and want to know more about what's going on here. So that's what I think is happening with the Fire Emblem 4 remake. It looks like cross-gen might be a thing here. Now let's go ahead and move on to Metroid Prime 4. This is something that a lot of us have been very frustrated on. Not myself, just because Metroid Prime has always been awesome to me, but I've always been more of a 2D Metroid fan. Despite Metroid Prime being incredible and rating super high, and I get everybody loves it, but I've always been more of a 2D Metroid guy. So when it's ready, it's ready. But at this point, people are wondering what's going on with it. Is it canceled? Is it a Switch 2 title? Is it still just going to be on Switch, but just really late? What is happening? And I think that the truth with this is kind of mixed in and once again, complicated. And look at it. You go back with the history of this game. It gets announced in 2017. Everyone's excited and happy. It's a JPEG on a screen. Great, right? We don't hear about anything. Then all of a sudden, there's been rumors, Bandai Namco, some other European developer out there working on the game. It doesn't work out. The game is not up to the standards that Nintendo wants. And remember, at that time, you're looking at it, this is like Metroid Other M. That was the last big Metroid console game. So they don't want another disaster on their hands when it comes to what the Metroid fans are thinking, or even like Metroid Prime, the what was it, Blast Ball and Metroid Prime Federation Force, right? So you're coming off some stuff that wasn't really too good. They scrap it, they go back to Retro Studios, and we haven't heard since then. Since 2019, I think it was early 2019, we have not heard anything since then. So they have completely rebooted, retooled, and reshaped this game from whatever vision it originally was. And it's taking way longer than maybe any of us expected, but that could be intentional. Now, we do have Metroid Prime Remastered that came out earlier in 2023, and it's fantastic. It's really good, and it shows that the Nintendo Switch is more than capable of delivering a high-quality Metroid Prime experience, even though it is a remaster of the original GameCube and Wii game. But at the same time, it still looks really good. It holds up very well, even compared to a lot of games in today's market on the Nintendo Switch. So the Switch can definitely handle that. And I do think that Metroid Prime 4 will be a Nintendo Switch title. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that Metroid Prime 4 is probably also going to be on the Nintendo Switch 2 as a cross-gen type of game. And I think that if you're looking at Metroid Prime and its history of what that game is about or what it does, graphics and performance have always been like high priorities when it comes to Metroid Prime. The original GameCube game was one of the games that sold me on the next generation of systems, going from the 5th gen to the 6th gen. It was honestly the best looking game I had ever seen Nintendo produce at any point at that time in 2001 or in 2000, whenever I first saw that game. It just looked and ran incredible, plus supported that 480p, which was awesome back then. 480p progressive scan, that was high tech back in those days. So for me, I'm looking at it that they might want to make Metroid Prime 4 a showcase for their next system, very similar to like what they did with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess on the GameCube and the Wii, and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. Now, and I still feel that Nintendo has some other big games in store for us with the Nintendo Switch 2. I think that there's a new 3D Mario game that's absolutely going to be revealed. You gotta launch a new Nintendo system and show off a big new 3D Mario game. But I also think that their super cash cow, and that is Mario Kart, that is also coming as well. So I think that they're trying to bolster that first year of the Nintendo Switch. So if Nintendo has a presentation and they say, hey, I know you guys have been waiting for this, but we finally got Metroid Prime 4. Here's your first look at it. And they show Switch 2 footage and say it's also available on the Nintendo Switch. That is kind of super hype right there, right? Because if you want it on Switch, you'll be able to get it. But then if you want that upgraded version with more bells and whistles, you're going to be able to get it on the Nintendo Switch too. So that's kind of how I feel that they could go about it. But imagine in the first, let's just say 6-7 months or first year of the system, you get Metroid Prime 4, a big new 3D Mario game, a brand new Mario Kart game, and a Fire Emblem 4 remake. That makes for a good first year or so of the Nintendo Switch, and I'm keen on thinking that Mr. Furukawa, the president of Nintendo, absolutely wants to have those big heavy hitters in that first year to have that success and momentum, very similar to what they did with the Nintendo Switch, where they had a big Zelda game right there at launch, where they had a Mario Kart game very shortly after launch. They had new IPs like ARMS, for example. They had Splatoon, a big multiplayer game. So I think that they absolutely want to have that same base and structure for what they're doing going forward in order to have a good launch, because you can't take anything for granted. Just because the Nintendo Switch is super successful doesn't mean that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to start out just as good or better. You have to have the content. Without the games to back up what you're talking about, you're going to end up like the Nintendo 3DS or like the Wii U, where yeah, you get those hardcore people to go out there and buy it right there at launch, but after that it becomes dry and it becomes where nobody wants to buy the system unless you have those big games upcoming with release dates, with gameplay, with footage. So I do feel that Nintendo is charting more into that territory with Metroid Prime 4 and Fire Emblem 4 Remake. But what are your thoughts on this when it comes to the MIA games for the Nintendo Switch? One of them confirmed with Metroid Prime 4, just still on Switch. They're still saying it's coming, but it's TBD. And then, of course, Fire Emblem 4 Remake, which has never been officially announced, but there has been plenty of good word that this game is a thing. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure you hit that like button if you didn't do so. Subscribe if you are someone new and you made it to the end of the video. Hit that notification bell to get my videos first, and check out some of my other Nintendo Switch videos on Fire Emblem, Metroid, the Nintendo Direct, best Switch games, and more right here on screen. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.